Last week we had Jimmy Pardo. We've had some great comics and an interesting couple of friends of mine and an SNL writer and some people interested in social justice and, buddies and Augie Smith and Tom Simmons. And it's just been fun for me to hang and talk to friends. We can dive in to talk about this right away. Upcoming, we may or may not have some more principles from the Bob and Tom Show. But my first principle from the Bob and Tom Show is here right now. Ladies and gentlemen, the incomparable, the wonderful Kristi Lee. Thanks for joining me, lady.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. Although I hear I'm third on the list.
No, not at all. Let's discuss it right off the top.
All right.
I actually had in my head that I wanted to invite all four of you guys.
Okay.
And I thought, well, there's no way to do that without getting into trouble with all of them unless I invite them simultaneously. And that's what I did. I literally wrote a text, copied it, and I sent them all within 1 minute.
Okay.
And in my head, I thought, this is what'll happen. Josh will respond first because there's sort of this camaraderie amongst road comics, right?
Sure.
I figured you would be the second to say yes. Chick would blow me off for a while, eventually say yes. And Tom Griswold would be polite and decline and never come on.
Right.
That was my guess. That sounds about right.
That sounds exactly how I would imagine, yes.
Josh and Chick didn't answer at all. Josh is away on vacation.
Yeah, he gets
away from the world, so he's got an excuse. Yeah. Chick not answering right away totally fits the brand. I think he'll eventually say yes, and we'll get him on.
Yeah.
You answered immediately, and I was like, well, are you free this Wednesday? You're booked. And Tom answered pretty quickly, which I didn't expect, and said, can we do it in the afternoon? And I was like, well, I guess so.
Yeah, he said that to me too. He goes, if I can tape it earlier in the day, I might do it. I go,
right.
Okay, whatever.
Willie was great, because Tom immediately goes, he invited me, and Willie was like, you love he invited me.
Yes.
That was hilarious.
Never a dull moment.
So I appreciate you being first. You were not the first or the last invited. You were invited simultaneously to cover my ass.
Okay. I believe that.
I figured I want to get all four of you guys, or whatever number of you are willing, and then we could go to the next tier down of Pat Godwin and Johnny Baker and
I'm not going to tell him you said he was
the other characters. Maybe they're watching. You know what I'm saying. So I have so many questions, and if I pry, then you could tell me to go fuck myself. We say fuck on this show if we want to.
Oh, okay. My heart just skipped a beat.
Quick, hit the dump button. We don't make a point of it, but we're free to. That's all I'm saying. I've got a Sweetwater beer. These are. I'm in Atlanta. This is an Atlanta brewery.
Wow, that looks nice.
Little plug for the sponsor that we don't have yet.
Yeah, I have a sweet Indiana water.
Sweet water. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, it's actually straight from this is great. So I am sitting in my kitchen at the end of the island. I only have room for one at the end of my island. But if I go like this, here's the fridge, and I can
that is great.
Yeah. So if I get thirsty, it's right there. I'm not drinking tonight, unfortunately, because Monday night, I got a little hurt. I'm not going to lie to you. And
you're drinking Monday.
Yeah, it was it's a
Monday's
special.
a school night, Kristi.
No, I had a little dinner party that got a little out of hand. I can't. We have this beautiful new deck outside, and we got this patio heater, and it was just a perfect night. And next thing you know, cognac was brought out. I have no explanation for it. But I will not be doing that on a school night again. I can tell you that.
Now, the viewers may not know this. What time do you normally get up on a Tuesday morning?
Oh, I got up at 4:30 at the same time. I usually get up between 4 and 4:30. I slept till 4:30 Tuesday morning. I may or may not have still been. Tuesday's show was pretty something special. I hope you didn't miss it, because I did. No, I get up at 4:30, so I went to bed around 11. So I'm normally not in bed until 10 anyway. It's like I'm a 10 to 4 girl. 6 hours is about all I get.
Wow, that's amazing. You don't nap on a typical basis?
Sometimes I do. Yeah, it depends. 2 to 2:30, I get a little sleepy-eyed in the chair, but it just depends on the day.
People don't know this about morning radio. I've always said this. I go, it's the only job where if you're really, really good at it, they give you the worst shift.
Yeah,
It's like,
I I can't answer because before this I was in television news. I was an engineer and I worked 3 to 11 or 4 to midnight for 8 years. So I was a night gal. I was always I would go to bed at midnight, 2, 3 in the morning, get up at noon. So when this hit, it was like it was a whole reprogramming kind of thing. And I'll tell you what, it's been an adjustment. But I am very blessed that I'm one of these people that the alarm goes off and I am up and I'm going. I
that's
mean,
great.
yeah.
Well, that's actually one of the questions that I had scribbled down to ask you, so I'll ask it here. What does a television engineer do? What does that job entail?
Um, it entails, well, okay, to be really honest with you, and I'm not a young chicken anymore. I'm kind of proud of this because in 1980, there was this thing called the EOE out that was really big and for equal opportunity, especially for women. And I
Oh,
was one of the first, if not the first woman engineer hired at this affiliate, the ABC affiliate in Indianapolis. So when I walked in the door, it was and I did this because I had a high school radio teacher who has totally changed my life, Dana Webb, and he knows this. He is my mentor. I owe him everything. And he forced me in high school to get a first class license. And so I did. And that at the time was like an engineering degree for radio and television. And you had to have one to work in TV.
huh.
And so I got a phone call sitting at my desk one day, and a man said, I hear you have a first class license. We need to hire a woman. Basically, that's exactly what he said to me.
Wow, that's crazy.
And I would never have gotten in the door, or nor would I even thought about going there. But I go, sure, I'll come down and talk to you. And I'd never been in a TV station. I mean, we had a little TV station in our high school that I was on, but I always wanted to do sports. I wanted to be on the TV. I didn't want to be behind it.
Right.
So that was kind of an interesting experience. And I got hired and I ended up starting running a camera. And then I moved into master control, which is where you sit in front of this big board. And while the TV shows are running that you're watching on TV, I'm the person that's putting the commercials in them. So, that's kind of what you do.
Yeah.
And then I worked myself all the way up to technical director. And the technical director is the person that switches the newscasts. So I would sit there and the director would go, take camera one, take camera two, font, roll tape, take tape, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
So I was the TD for the early and late news, which was as high as you could go in engineering without being a supervisor or I wasn't a maintenance person. I was more of a work, actual working person.
Wow.
So, boy, people are listening. Sorry, my phone's blowing up. Anyway, so that's what I did. But
That's cool.
yeah.
And while you were doing that, you were also started doing part-time radio. Is that
Oh,
right?
I'd always been doing radio. I worked 7 days a week forever. I started working radio when I got on the high school radio station when I was 15, and I got my first commercial job. I literally got the job before I had my driver's license. My mom had to drive me 30 miles up the road to this little teeny radio station.
30 miles?
Yeah. And she did that for 2 weeks before I got my license. So she had to do 2 weekends before. Believe me, I've heard about it ever since. But so then I would work weekends and worked at Channel 6. And I'm not saying this is the right way to go, but I didn't go to college. I went to college for a semester and it just wasn't a fit for me because I knew by the time I got out of high school, I knew I was going to do something in radio or television. I knew it.
Huh.
And I wasn't getting that at IU because they wouldn't let you even near the radio station until you were like a junior or something. And I'm like, what? I'm working. I'm getting paid to do this. So I came back at Christmas and I got hired. I got a job. I mean, I did radio part-time, but I worked, I got a job. I was working in a hospital, but I still had a job. And then I finally got a full-time radio job. And then that's where I was sitting when they called and said, hey, you want this TV gig? Well, here's the great thing about TV. It was union. So I was an electrical worker. I was an IBEW and it paid really well. I mean, I had to buy my own house when I was 22. My first house, because I got lucky. Very lucky.
Wow, that's
No, in fact, I was younger than that. I was 21 when I bought my first
I
house.
still don't own a house. I'm in my mom's house right now.
All my friends were still in college, and I'm like, yeah, I just bought a house.
That's great. Okay, so then you're working at Q95.
Now, yeah. Oh,
But at
then
the time, did you work Q95?
I wasn't at Q90. Well, yeah, later I was. I worked at a bunch of radio stations around here, around Indy. And then I ended up at Q95, and I would do overnights. So I would work at the TV station until midnight, then go into the radio station and work until 6 in the morning. And I did that Sunday night, Monday morning show, which is where I met Bob and Tom, because I would be there when they would come in the morning. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how that worked.
But
And
you
then,
were there first,
yeah, I was there before them.
and they had a thing that was already going in Michigan and moved to
Yeah,
the big city.
yeah. They moved from Michigan. So
Okay.
yeah, I would be there in the mornings when they were there, and I just kind of like would hang out for a little bit, and then, oh, this is such a long, boring story. I moved away. I moved to Albuquerque for a man, and he's a great man, but it just didn't work out. And while I was in Albuquerque, they called and said, "Hey, would you like to work for us full time?" And I'm like, "Wow," because yeah, because that was like my dream job, and so I went back, and
You left. You weren't even there, and
I
they.
left. I've left and come back more times than most people. But, yeah, so I left. I'm kind of left Albuquerque and came back to Indy, and yeah, so here I
Wow,
am.
that's fascinating. I didn't know any of that part.
Yeah, so
Was
that
there
was,
someone on the show that was kind of that role, or they invented
yeah.
that role for
They
you?
had a girl that was on the show. Um, what was her name? I can't remember. Beth Surratt, I believe. Don't quote me on this. I told you before we started, my memory's not really, really good.
I don't know
But
nothing about that.
that didn't really work out, and they kind of called and said, we had some kind of chemistry with you, because you would hang out with us, and so would you like to try this? And I go, yeah. I was miserable there in Albuquerque, because in Albuquerque, I was doing the same job. No, I wasn't even doing the same job. I was in a TV station, and remember, I was a union engineer here, and I was a technical director. Well, there, I was a production person. Basically, I ran camera in the morning for the morning news, and I got paid. I'll never forget this. When I got hired, he goes, I usually start people at $4.25 an hour, but because of your experience, I'm going to give you $4.75. And I was like, what? I mean, I couldn't believe it. So yes, I made $4.75 an hour or whatever it was. And I mean, it was no money. And then they got this beautiful, for those engineer geeks out there, they got this beautiful Grass Valley switcher while I was there. They got a brand new one. Nobody had ever touched one. I worked on one for 5 years. And so I taught them how to use the dang switcher. I still got my $4.75 an hour. Yeah, that was a crazy situation. That was not, I did not leave there. I burned some bridges. Let's leave it at that.
So they knew you, they had chemistry, but they hadn't tried you on the show and they offered you a full-time job and you live on the other side of the country?
Pretty much.
Wow, that's
But,
crazy.
I had been there. I had done weekends forever. People knew me in the market. The PD knew who I was. And I don't know. And I had some news background anyway, because I had done news at other radio stations. So I think they were just, I don't know. You can ask them about that. Maybe they didn't have any say in it. I don't know. I have no clue how it happened. But I'm so glad it did.
That's great.
Yeah.
And what year was that? That was 30 years ago. 28?
More than that. 86, 87.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Now all right, this is a compliment that seems obvious, but I have to say it out loud. Like, to be a part of something that ends up being great in whatever form, in whatever field you're in, is rare and astounding. And to be a part of something that ends up being great that you do for 34 years is even more astounding. It's
I know.
amazing.
Well, and what's really amazing is it feels like 5. I mean, when you say 34 years, I look at you like, well, come on, I'm not even 34 years old.
Right, right.
No, but I mean, that's how I feel, because, you've heard that old adage, if you love what you do, it's not a job. And that's exactly, I have been so blessed. believe me, I know it. I have been so, so blessed. And now that I have kids that are finding their way, I am just, I am just so lucky that I didn't ever really, I just knew. And I had a path, and by the grace of God and some luck, here I am. And,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
so
great.
that's, yeah.
Do you have any authority in trying to nudge them into college, or do they go, well, you didn't go to college?
Well, they both wanted to go to college. My oldest is in art school, so she's having a blast. She doesn't, she's more of the creative type. The younger one loves to learn. She'll probably go to grad school, probably law school, who knows. But she just started on the college radio station at Purdue, which blew me away.
Great.
She had never expressed any interest. And damn, she's good. She is more confident and more relaxed on her first and second show, than I was in 5 years on the radio. I was so jealous of that. So proud of her. That's really cool that she's doing that.
My wife's dabbling in stand-up a little bit all of a sudden, and she's
really?
weirdly, she's got chops because she's been public speaking, and she did some acting, and she taught classes, and so she's bringing so much more like broad skill to the table than I had when I started.
Cool.
And I'm jealous of that. It's kind of cool. So when you started, were you doing news right away, or did that evolve later on?
With Bob and Tom?
Yeah.
Yes. But I would only come in like once an hour, and I had I don't know, maybe like 10 after the hour, and I would do some news, and that was it. I mean, it was really limited. I wasn't on very much. And I can remember I had my own little newsroom. I mean, I literally our studio wasn't big enough for 3-4 people to be in at the beginning when we were in the first place. And then it wasn't until we got syndicated, and don't ask me what year that was because I can never tell you, but when we got syndicated, I remember him sitting me down and saying, look, here's the deal. We're going to go on this radio station in Evansville and Fort Wayne, and we're going to start syndicating the show. We want your role to be more, you're going to be sitting in there the whole time. You're not going to just be coming in and out and doing news. You're going to be in there the whole time. So that's when that kind of changed.
Okay. But wow, okay. I didn't realize that was relatively late in the game. You've been doing it for a decade-ish.
Probably. 96, 95. Yeah, I guess. I don't remember. Like I said, I'm terrible at that.
Now, what your real name is not Kristi Lee. How and when did that come to be?
Okay, I used my real name when I was first in radio, but I was on a country music station, so it didn't really matter. And then when I went to the big time, to Top 40, which I was so excited about, and it's no secret, I've been married before a few times. My first husband was on the air with us. He was on that station, and his name was Tom Kristi, spelled Kristi.
Oh.
So that's where I got Kristi. And then my mother's middle name is Scott. And I always liked that name. And, so I thought Kristi Scott would be a fun name. Well, we had a Jim Scott that did part-time or something. I don't know. But my boss at the time goes, you can't use that. And he goes, it's too confusing. And I go, okay, what do you want? And he got out some magazine, and he started going through these papers. And he goes, Kristi Lee, like it. That's your name. And that's where it came from.
Wow.
Yeah. And
it's the radio version of When You Come to New York 100 years ago, Ellis Island.
Yes, it was kind of like that. I go, that sounds fine. My dad always said it sounded like a stripper, though, so it was kind of funny to me.
It's so fun. At least you got a name that has legs and you could grow up with. Some of these guys that I call in and have talked to all over the years in the mornings, they have these names that kind of don't fit them anymore. There's Ed Zeppelin and
I know that.
Like these sort of goofy names.
Sure.
One of my favorite radio guys ever that I used to do quick snaps with all the time was Uncle Nasty, which is
Uncle Nasty.
Uncle Nasty doesn't even really describe his personality. He's a really smart, kind of gruff, interesting, earthy dude. But it's a brand that he built, and now you can't lose the brand.
Right.
It's funny how all that stuff, some of it sticks, some of it doesn't. All right. So do you miss the Bob and Tom tour stuff as much as I do? People may or may not remember this.
Yeah, I do.
We used to go out. You went a lot. They would pick me here and there once in a while.
I was terrible at stand-up, though. I was terrible. I don't miss that part, but I miss the people. I miss meeting all the affiliates and going to the markets, and
right.
we had fun.
So we would go, you know, whatever. Vincennes would go, hey, we want to have a Bob and Tom
Right.
All-Star night. And they would pick you or Chick for a while. You guys would kind of alternate out. So there was a voice from the show,
Yep.
you know, again, a principal from the show. And then 3 or 4 of us other knuckleheads who were on the show a bunch. And
Yeah.
it was great fun. It was, you know, you do one Friday and another one Saturday. Sometimes they were 6 hours apart, or
You get to road trip with Donnie Baker. It was great.
right, Greg Hahn and
Yes,
Drew Hastings
yes,
and Tim
yes.
Wilson, and you know,
And hang out in the bars after. It was great times.
right, Augie, and you know, there's so many.
Yeah.
That's what's fun
Bob,
for us as the
Jamie.
comics, because we would, you know, once you kind of grow up in comedy, now you're the headliner and you go on the road and you work with these relatively newish comics, and some of them are great guys, but it was so nice to work with other headliners, these grizzled veterans who were your buddies that you never get to see, and to spend a weekend driving all over creation with those guys and
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about life was so fun.
I went to Montana. I went to South Dakota. I mean, I've never been to these places.
Right.
It was awesome. Yeah, I miss it a lot.
I miss all comedy, but
Yeah,
that
I miss a
comedy in
lot of
particular.
things.
But yeah, that's another compliment I have for you. You're not, you know, not traditionally a stand-up comic, but when I worked with you on the road doing these all-star dates, you were a great host. I mean, again, you're not traditionally an old-fashioned stand-up comic, but you were very good at hosting the shows and doing some funny lines and getting people going. You know, they were so excited to see you, you know, after all these years of listening to you. To get to see Kristi Lee is a big deal.
Yeah, and if I got really stuck, I'd just say, fuck Tom Griswold, and people would go nuts. And I'm like,
That's so funny. You know, I actually asked some of the social media folks to send in questions, and one of the questions I had was, how much of who you guys are on the show is a character versus how much of it is who you really are? Which I never quite thought of it that way, but that's an interesting question. What would be your answer to that?
well, I think most of us, first of all, Chick isn't an alcoholic. Tom, even though he's an ass bag most of the time, probably has the biggest heart and is the most loyal friend you'll ever find on the planet,
Yeah.
anywhere.
Right.
I don't want to bring down the fourth wall, but you know, we all kind of tag team him, but when he's there for you. You know what I mean? So that I think that's definitely a character. Josh is Josh. I don't think that many of. I mean, I used to say I play a character on the radio, but now I'm thinking about it as I'm just me, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, there's an old there's an old comedy premise that some sitcoms and other comedy forms are a center amongst eccentrics. So you have a bunch of crazy characters, and you have someone who sort of plays the same role, who represents us in life,
Right.
and then it sort of evens out the thing, and it sort of makes sense to have that person reacting to the lunacy in the room. And I always thought of you as that. Does that land for you? Is that your role on the show?
Well, I've always been kind of told, I don't know if this, because I don't know, I just go in there and do my thing, that I kind of bring, when it gets too crazy, I'm the one that goes, whoa, 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 like a mother bear kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah, right. See?
Okay, yeah. And it's like, all right, we're moving on, you know, like, and I'm not afraid to do that. I'm not afraid to go, all right, enough butt jokes. We're going to talk about this now, because you know, you can only take so much, and he gets way far over here and has to be pulled back. And I understand when Jess and Jessica or whomever's sitting there for me, when I understand that intimidation. I know how hard it is to go, you know, no, we're going to, you know, where I'm not afraid to go, we're moving on. They would probably wait until he goes, what do you got next? Or, you know what I mean, they do a wonderful job. Don't get me wrong. But there is that thing that I have, I think, that's what I've been told, that kind of keeps things from, like you just said, spinning out of control a little bit.
Right. 34 years, lady.
Yeah. I always say they're the brothers I never had, because I grew up in an all-female household. So to be around men like that is just.
Oh, that's interesting. See, I would have thought that you, if I didn't know, I would have thought brothers, because you're very sort of comfortable in dealing with this sort of boy comedy all the time.
No, I think it's mainly just because I've always worked in a male-dominated field, always.
Right.
I mean, TV, radio, because I'm not a pioneer by any means, but kind of. I mean, there
Yeah.
are a lot more women working in this business now than there were in 1985. I can tell
Oh,
you that.
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, so
So
interesting.
even 1980 for sure.
Oh my goodness. All right. Oh, now I'm
Yeah.
curious. I want to look at these other questions. I don't want to lose anything here. Let me just
Well,
throw some at you rapid fire. Uh, Kristi, did you get a chance to ride a horse that time you were up in Billings doing
that's
promo
an
for the
Augie
radio
Smith
station?
reference. You know that, right?
What's
Because
that?
Augie, when he first came on the show,
Oh, this is an Augie reference?
I think it is because they said you're from Billings, and Tom goes, "Oh, you ride horses?" That was the first words Tom ever said to Augie Smith.
Right.
He assumed everybody in Billings rides a horse.
I forgot that. Yeah.
In answer to that question, I did not ride there, but I love to ride. I don't get to do it very often, but it's I have in the past. When I was in Albuquerque, I didn't have a job. I used to kind of exercise horses down the street because I didn't have anything else to do. So I love to ride.
That's a question here. Benny Fairchild was the one who asked about the portraying characters. I thought that was a good question.
Yeah, it is.
Somebody else asked, what's your favorite thing about Albuquerque? Do you miss anything about it?
I miss the green chili. Oh my God, they had such great green chili there. The food is amazing.
Green,
Uh,
not
I,
red?
I'm a green girl. I like green
Okay.
chili. I really miss the topography. So beautiful. You could go skiing in an hour and a half up in Angel Fire. I learned to snow ski there, and great fishing lakes. And then you go down to Alamogordo and that whole White Sands area. I mean, that state has a lot to offer for people that don't. The Four Corners area, we were on in Farmington, and we did some Bob and Tom shows up there at Farmington.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot going on. New Mexico's I did the balloon fiesta. I missed that. That was fun. So yeah, I miss Albuquerque a little bit.
Yeah, I love Farmington. Farmington and Durango. It's hilarious because it's the only place that I've ever been where you can do two cities, one radio market. They're about an hour apart and they're like different planets.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. Like Farmington is very blue collar, there's a lot of oil workers, there's some grit to it.
Yep.
Durango is like hippies and vegans, and they're up in this like fancy town. It's astounding that they would literally advertise a Friday and a Saturday show at the same time, at the same ticket price in different cities in the same commercial for me. And it was fun to see like how dramatically different. And both places, the Farmington gig is actually not in a particularly great location. It is a bar at the airport.
Okay.
Which is just open. You just go to the bar at the airport and regulars just go there. But just freakishly great shows, despite a terrible setup. The people were so kind. I've just always loved that part of the world. It's been really great.
I love Farmington. Big dog. I used to do middays there. Did you know that? When we do the Bob and Tom show, and then I would do middays after I voice tracked. I loved Farmington. There's a great story about the Bob and Tom tour that date. We were in Farmington, and Donnie and I were flying in, and we get to the airport in Albuquerque, and we rent our car, and we get on the freeway, and it's at a dead stop. I mean, it is not moving. And it's like, I don't know, 5 o'clock. We have a show like at 8, right? And we were like sitting there and like, okay, this isn't going to work. Well, fortunately, because I lived in Albuquerque, I knew the back roads to get to Farmington. So we did a big U-turn on the freeway. We went down and around. We literally got to the show I was hosting. I think Bob Zaney actually had to go out and do the first comic because that's how far, we almost missed it. But it was like, Donnie's like, oh my God. I go, hey, I lived here for a while. I kind of know how to go around. Because that was the one thing about living there. We went everywhere, all over the state. We just really enjoyed traveling and going there. And so I was really lucky in that. And we would not have made the show because it turned out they had shut the interstate down for like 6 hours. It was a horrible accident. So we would not have made the show.
I had a co-headline gig that I was doing with Zaney, and I usually go first because he's Bob Zaney. He's a pain in the ass to follow because he kills. But I was late, and I had the same thing where I landed at showtime, and so Bob had to go first. And I got there, and he's destroying this little theater, and I go wash my face and get ready. And Bob Zaney introduces me all grumbly about it. That was great, great fun show. I love
Ah,
Bob Zaney.
I love Bob Zaney. He's a great guy.
All right.
Old
Mike
school.
Nicholson asked, does Kristi have plans to resume her podcast? I really enjoyed it. She had some really interesting guests, and we all knew she had a lot to say when she could be uninterrupted for a freaking minute.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. Um, I love doing the podcast as well, but as you know, it's really hard to get guests sometimes. And I would do the show, we call it drop. We drop every Tuesday morning. So every week I do a new show, no matter what. And with the way the podcast market was going, and it was harder and harder to get guests, and I spent so much time on it and got $0. I mean, it cost me
Yeah.
$1,000 a month because I had hired an assistant and I had bought merchandise, and she was doing all the social media, and I had to pay a producer, and I had to go to a studio every week. It cost me at least $2,000 a month. And we may have had 4 national sponsors for $200 or what. I mean, it was stupid. So it just got to the point where I love doing it. Don't get me wrong. Because I always thought I could interview people if I ever got a chance. Nobody ever let me talk. And I think I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. I'll never forget when I had Mark Maron on the show. And that was a huge get for me because I was really early and I was really scared. And I drove down to Bloomington. I'll never forget it. And, he was very kind. And then he said when we were done, he goes, "You got stuff out of me no one's ever gotten out of me."
Oh, that's nice.
And I went, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." And I thought that was the biggest compliment I could ever have gotten, from one of the best in the business at what he does.
Right.
So that made me feel really confident. And it really helped me a lot. That gave me a lot of confidence. But I would love to do the podcast, but I just don't at this stage in my life. I'm lazy. I'm going to say it right out loud. I've worked my butt off for a long, long time, and I'm kind of tired, and I just don't want that stress anymore. It was very stressful.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you have a full-time job. It's not.
Yeah, and I don't need to promote a show, and I don't need, I don't. This is gonna sound silly. I don't need to hear myself talk anymore. I don't want more I don't want fame, or I don't want anything out of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. This is great. Just sitting down and talking like this and Facebook Live. I mean, maybe I'd do that again. I don't know. That would be, but I don't want, like you're doing it every Wednesday at 9:00. See, now you've got the stress of who am I going to get next week?
That's right.
And it's like, but
I got 2 jackasses that didn't even respond.
Right. But the good thing for you though, is you don't have to worry about paying a producer and, all that kind of stuff. So
that's right. It's the way I do my self-produced shows. I keep the costs really low so that the basement is minus $100. I'm not renting a theater. Same with this. You keep the costs low. And my podcast partner is a former, editor and booker at Sirius, so he knows all the other stuff. He does all the hard stuff for me.
And the other part about the podcast is I really didn't have. I think the shit with Brit shows we should have done those on our own. We should have just done that show, and I shouldn't have probably done an interview show. But she, the girl that does that with me, the 2 girls, both have full-time jobs and kids and busy, and it was hard to get them to commit to a time, and so it was just and then the podcast seemed to just, and the gentleman's very kind, but one week I'd have a comic on, that I'd had Mark Maron, I'd have you, and then I would have a jewelry designer. Well, she's fascinating. I love her. She's great. Very interesting story, but how many people want to listen? You know what I mean? I didn't have a focus is the word I'm looking for.
Right.
I wanted to bring stories of people that you hadn't heard of. I mean, that was part of my thing, but then it's hard to sell that. I don't know. I didn't have direction.
I hear you. Like talk shows always, they try to not book the author because it doesn't have broad appeal, even though that might be the most interesting person that they talk to that day. Yeah, that's a tricky balance too.
And there's just so many now that are so specific, like doing all authors or doing all comics or and I'm not a monologue person. I can't do what, some of these people do that are so good at it. Yeah. Anyway, that's cool.
Right.
But thank you for listening to the podcast. They're still up if people want to listen to the old
There
ones.
were a couple different questions about the podcast. Joanna Rutherford asked, Kristi, how have you been putting up with these boys for so long? Love the show, smiley face. uh,
I all of a sudden did my mail just pop up. That's freaking me out a little bit. Well, as we discussed at the top of the show, I drink a lot. I don't know. You know, it comes off as mean, but deep down, I know. I mean, I've cried at the Coke machine before, but that's just, those days happen. Deep down, I don't think they really mean it. So
yeah.
I don't do
That
that.
sounds like an expression, like, it was one of those cry at the Coke machine days.
Oh yeah, believe me, it happens.
Well, I believe it. Timothy York said, Kristi, what's your favorite or dream car? Mine's a 67 GTO.
Oh, we're not gonna talk cars, are we? That's a whole different show.
Briefly, do you got a quick answer to that guy?
My dream car. Well, I have so many. Okay, this isn't a dream car, but I think my next one, if I get another car, I want a restored, really cool looking El Camino. I know that sounds crazy, but I think they're really cool. And I think there was one in Florida I should have bought last winter. I'm kicking myself that I didn't. It was beautiful blue, totally restored. It was awesome. But as far as because I'm afraid to drive real fast. I mean, I'd love to, but dream car. I don't
El
know.
Camino. That's
Oh,
not the top 100 things I would have guessed.
oh, I know. But they're not sexy at all. But it'd just be kind of cool.
Because you were a certain age when they were hot,
I
you
don't
were
know what it
not
is.
connected to them.
I
There was
can't
some
answer
cute
that.
guy you knew who's driving
No,
one
I didn't
around
know
when you were
anybody. No, the
19.
cute guy the very first car that when I got hooked on this was when I was 16, and God, I hope he's listening. Up near Fort Wayne, Indiana, it was a 67 Chevy. It was a 67 Chevelle. Oh my God. Or was it a 72? It was in that area. Maybe it's
Yeah, that's a powerful car.
67 or 72. Oh, sweet, sweet. And those muscle cars are great. I know quite a few guys that go to the car shows with me. Their muscle cars are a whole section. They're awesome. But I've always been a little bit, I like obviously littler ones. I have, two little bitty cars. I'd love, love, love. I guess my dream car in answer to this would be an Aston Martin. But, that's just, they're coming out with a new one. They are bringing out a brand new Aston Martin model that probably I could never be able to afford it, but I dream about them. I watch for them on Bring a Trailer and stuff, but they're all
5 years and then you get one, right?
What?
You can certainly buy your dream El Camino. You just wait on your dream a little and then it's affordable.
Well, my El Camino, yeah, but not an Aston Martin. I probably won't get an El Camino, but I talk about it a lot.
My boy Ron Milford asked, should you meet your heroes? You're obviously in a business where you meet a lot of these characters, the bands and the singers and the talk show characters and the actors and comics. Is it good to meet your heroes or not so good?
Fortunately for me, it's been very good. I had one horrible experience backstage with a singer. And then when he got sober and I met him later, he apologized. He didn't even remember this horrible situation, but that broke my heart. Huh?
You mean like not when he got sober that week, you mean over the years?
No, like over the years, I ran into him again a couple of times, and he's been on the show and off the show, and I'm not gonna mention any names, but it was, he really broke my heart. I mean, he was like really insulting to me, and I was a kid. I didn't know that, guys really talk to girls like that. So kind of that was a crushing, because he was like my hero, like not a hero, but like, oh, I love this man. You know how you get all giddy over some stupid rock star. But anyway, but for most of my life, it's been a positive experience. Like
right.
Brian Setzer, who I just adore, was great. Peter Frampton, obviously. I have his phone number. Just those kind of people, they've all been wonderful. I've had very few instances where somebody has been a jerk, but
Right. That's cool to hear. What's your favorite kind of guest? Do you have like an archetype or a certain kind of thing that you're like, oh, I love this, I love this guy, or I love this guest, or
Well,
she's
we love
great.
comics, of course. They're our favorite guests. We
Okay.
love comics.
Well, I'm happy to hear you say that. I didn't know if that was
Yeah.
true.
I love any guest who can carry on a conversation. That's kind of important. If you can, be a part of the conversation and be witty and funny, and that's good.
Right.
We don't do the kind of show like Terry Gross does where you're going to learn a lot. That's for sure. um,
There's no learning. There's laughing or get out.
right. Well, we're going to pull something maybe, but laughing is the most important thing.
Yeah, right. Oh, I know. So what happens when it doesn't work? Does it, you guys,
Oh,
I mean, you're grown-ups now, you just kind of scoot them out. You could move on, right?
yeah, that's rough. There are days when the show doesn't work. Then it's rough.
Right. Well, like
Like,
anything, right.
right. I mean, those are just so rough. Yeah, if a guest isn't working, we have a system now, and they definitely are out, and it's pretty obvious.
But most of the time, those are newish comics, right? They're
Okay,
like
but
the middle act at the club or whatever, and you try them out for 5 minutes at 9:40 or something.
yeah, or somebody's recommended them. Yeah, but I, Willie talks to his dad about this a lot now because his dad is so quick to judge. Gee, who would have thought that? And, Willie has to go, Dad, the younger comics are used to doing podcasts. They're not used to doing radio. So it's
Oh,
a different field for them. And they're not going to be as comfortable as an older comic or somebody that's done radio a lot. So you have to cut them some slack. And Tom's like, I don't know, they should come in and know what they're doing. It's kind of funny to listen to them argue, actually.
that is
Uh,
great.
yeah,
That's a new problem. That's a
it is a
generational
new
thing
problem.
that I wouldn't have never even occurred to me. That's
Right.
fascinating.
Yeah. So I don't know. And with COVID and the way things are going right now, um, you notice that, we don't have as many guests because we can't have anybody in the building. And when Zoom doesn't work, it totally throws him off. He cannot function. So he's starting to do, I think, fewer and fewer that aren't you, Al, Allie, the people that are always on we've got it set up and we know it's going to work. And yeah,
Right.
we have Maria
That's
Bamford on Friday. That ought to be interesting. That'll be a good show.
who's on Friday?
Maria Bamford.
Oh, she's great.
Yeah, she's great. She's a great guest.
She's a freaky good comic, but she's a good guest too.
She's a great guest. She's very sweet. She's very, very nice woman. I really like her a lot.
I'm happy to hear that because I could see that not working in some radio situations.
Yeah,
She's so weird.
yeah,
If she doesn't click with
yeah.
with Ed Zeppelin or who, like then what happens?
I think we have a bit of an advantage since we have a lot of people. You can probably pick one that you're gonna sort of relate to at some point, I guess.
Right. Yeah. She's great. When I did the comedy festival in Melbourne, I had the little pass. I could go see any show in the
Nice.
festival, and it was some of the best comics from literally all of the English-speaking world. It was Ireland and America and Australia and New Zealand and South Africa, and she was the only show I saw twice.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I went back and saw her show again.
And I bet it wasn't the same show either, was it?
No, it was.
Yeah.
She's so good and weird and compelling and refreshing and different. I'm just a huge fan. All right. Any guests in particular that stood out as like, wow, I thought he was going to be terrible and he was great, or this woman was so fascinating, or I can't believe I liked her, or
See, I knew you were
this,
going to ask me that. I told
this
you I
guy I
didn't
couldn't wait to
have
talk to and he was terrible. But
Oh no, I don't know. I'll tell you my all-time favorite guest on the show,
all right.
Dolly Parton. All-time
Hmm.
favorite. Absolutely the sweetest, most kind, fabulous woman. She is one of my heroes. I loved her. I was pregnant with Sophie, my second, Biva, and I was really big. I got a picture of us somewhere. I mean, I was huge. And she was helping me try to name them. She goes, "Oh, honey, I got so many kids grandkids, not grandkids, nieces and nephews. And she was running through all these names. She was just the sweetest thing.
Oh, that's
And then
cool.
I was doing a show. We were doing, I think, maybe a Bob and Tom show. I was doing something somewhere, and she was on stage. So it was like one of those places I'm sure you've done. Remember how we do, like there would be our show on one end of an arena, and then the other end of the arena there would be like a show. May have been Dayton. I don't know. Anyway, she was there, and they brought me up on stage. I got to stand on stage, like right on the side of the stage for like 4 songs. It was just amazing. Oh, it was a highlight of my life. I love
Right.
her. She was my favorite guest.
Dolly Parton.
Absolutely.
Do you guys
I
ever
never,
oh, go ahead.
no, I just never, I mean, I didn't really grow up as a Dolly Parton fan. My dad was a big country music guy and grew up kind of like Dolly did in that really poor, he was born in the Appalachian Mountains. And so I kind of had a kinship with that, you know, and, but I
Yeah.
was never a big, I had to listen, you know, I started in country music. So I played her music early. But now, and my kids they love her now. I mean, it's kind of cool. I like her a lot.
That's cool to hear. Do you guys ever disagree about guests? Like, have you ever, like, at the end of the morning, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that guy was such an asshole. And Tom's like, I thought he was great.
Usually the other way around. Tom usually says, that guy was such an asshole. And I'm like, I thought he was really nice, you know? Yeah. Yeah, that happens. But guess who wins? Not me. So if you were an asshole, you're not going to see him again.
Yeah, right. So what do you do with the show that like stand up? I feel like there's some parallels because it's a live environment and it's sort of it lives and dies sort of in the space at any given moment. It sings or it flops. What do you do with you're on for 4 hours? If
That's
it
the
starts off bad, what do you do next?
$1 million question. You know what? And I just keep reading news. That's what I do. I have a stack. If you ever see that, now that I'm back in the big room, there's next to my computer, which won't be there anymore because it doesn't work. So I'm taking this laptop in tomorrow because I'm tired of dealing with it. I have a stack of papers and I save all the stories we haven't done. And so it's like this thick. I mean, they may be 4 months old. It doesn't matter to me. I will never not have something to say. So if it gets bad, I'm gonna, dig
Now,
in.
when the show is not singing at the highest range of its art,
Yeah,
they come to you more often, right?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
absolutely.
Wow, it's so interesting. It's such a funny. I really got so much respect for what you guys do. I've done it's one thing to come in as a guest or with my segment, I like work on the thing really hard and I know what I'm going to say, or at least I know I'm going to try to say.
Well, you're professional. You do a great job.
But it's short. It's a well-produced, tiny thing.
Hmm.
It's different to be there and juggle the balls and keep them in the air for 4 hours is a completely different skill set. It's so hard to do well.
Well, and that's why we can sit here and say horrible things about Tom Griswold, and he's an aspect. He's a genius at that, and that is what he does. And
Right.
he he obviously he has some of his crutches, but he's a genius at keeping things moving. And he'll tell you, at the end of 4 hours, if you want to do this, do you want to try to do this? Because it is hard. It's
Oh,
very
it's so hard to run the show,
hard.
to make all the decisions and watch the clock and
Oh, yeah, and know where you're going, and yeah. I mean, Dean obviously is our producer, and he helps, but yeah, I don't want that pressure. None of it. We sit there and go, oh, I don't want to do this.
right. Yeah. If you and I are in there, we're not hilarious in that moment. We just
Right.
pause. But he's got to catch the ball and keep it in the air.
That's
Right.
right, and
That's
we don't
right.
have to do that.
That's right. That's a tough job for sure. Oh, it's so cool. It's great to talk to you. Anything you want to tell people they don't know about you?
I don't know like what.
No pressure. I just, people were excited when I mentioned it was you. They're like, wow, I want to see this one. Like they're implying like, fuck the rest of these guests.
I wish I was as exciting as people thought I was. I came home today and did laundry and sat on my deck and read a book.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
No, it's great.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. I wish I had some more time to do that kind of stuff.
You've got a kid. I'm an empty nester now. Trust me.
Right.
God, I hate it when people would say this to me, treasure every moment because they're going to be, and by golly, I am now. I am like, oh, my kid's back.
Oh,
And
wow.
listen to how quiet it is in here. My dog is even asleep at my feet. He's not even moving. I mean,
For it to be quiet where I am takes a small miracle and a lot of
right.
cooperation. Yeah, right.
We've got what, 3-year-old? How old is she?
Yeah, she's 2, and
2. Okay.
it
And a
takes a lot.
dog. And, yeah.
Yeah, right. An old dog and a young kid. Those are noisy things.
My daughter's adorable, man. She is so cute.
She's a cutie, man. I had a tough day for some stuff I won't even talk about, but I went to give her a bath about 90 minutes ago, and she tugged on my shirt and talked me into getting in with her.
Oh.
It was it like fed my soul. It like built me back to human again. She
Yeah.
was so sweet. We practiced pouring water in cups, and she made like art on the
Yeah,
wall with
on
the
the wall.
bubbles.
Oh, I miss that.
It was
Man,
awesome.
before you know it, you'll call her at college. And, how's
I
your
know, I know, I know.
fine? What'd you do? Nothing, Mom. I'm okay. You don't have to call me every day.
These are the moments that keep me going, because I have to say, being the parent of a 2-year-old in a pandemic with no babysitters or school or help has been really hard.
I bet.
But those kind of moments, I posted one recently on Instagram where it's her chasing me through a park. I'm like, you're not going to catch me. And she is just running. It's adorable.
How old's Ava now?
Ava is 11,
Jeez.
but she's a giant.
Is she really?
I have one of each. Ava was like huge in the womb and has been tall compared to everyone her whole life. And Zoe is the opposite. She's sort of at the other end of the spectrum for her age.
Right. You never know what'll happen.
It's funny to see that the two extremes are in the same gang.
Yeah.
They're great
Yeah,
kids.
but it's a different world, I'll tell you. It's really quiet. But the positive is my house is really clean, whereas it's not like that when the girls are home.
Right.
Oh my gosh. I run
Right.
the dishwasher like once every 3 days or something instead of every day. It's so great.
My
That
mom
part's
has
good.
having the opposite experience. She has like this tornado that just invaded her house. She's been retired and quiet and been in charge of everything, and now there's just chaos at every turn.
Is your mother retired?
Yeah,
Okay.
which is funny because my dad had one of those clocks that like counted down for a year to the minute he was going to retire.
Oh my.
He was so excited about retiring. Retired, had a great summer, dropped dead. My mom was a workaholic, and I just assumed that she would die at work someday, and she was 77 or something. She ended up retiring somewhat early and has crushed it. She has grandchildren she's involved with and travels with friends, and not this year, but she's been very active
For
with all
her.
the fun stuff, and she's been great. She's my new goal in retirement. She's got money that she saved and has a pension and comfortable life. She has 2 houses. She has a lake house and a
Goodness.
regular house.
What's she do for a living?
She was a teacher, but she just didn't spend any money all those years. And
Wish I
she's
could
pretty,
say that.
except for the 2 houses, she's super frugal and she's very careful about stuff. And
For
you
her.
know, my dad and mom both worked their way through school, and they did it the hard way. They had government cheese and surplus wheat when I was a kid. They were really poor, but
I
they
thought
just
that
saved
way.
money and made good decisions. And I would like to do more of that than I have done so far in my crazy life.
Yeah, radio doesn't come with a pension, I can tell you
I know.
that. Yeah,
Comedy,
yeah,
nothing.
I'm,
They don't
I'm
even
not
do
that good
comedy
at that.
this year.
Yeah, go look at my garage. I'm not good at saving money either. Oh my gosh. That's why
Great to talk to
retirement
you.
scares me. What?
It's great to talk to you. It's nice
Yeah,
to, because my interaction with you is so like couple beats, goodbye. Like it's nice to just sit and talk to you for a sec.
yeah, this is fun. I don't know if it was very informative, but it was fun.
Oh no, it's great. People adore you.
Thank
I've traveled
you.
this country talking to Bob and Tom fans for 15 years, and they love all of you guys. They in some cases they literally grew up listening to you.
Oh yeah.
You hear that. I hear that about being on your
Yeah,
show, and I've
well,
been on a fraction of the time you have.
well, I'm
So
humbly embarrassed. Thank you so much. That was very
yeah,
kind of you.
absolutely,
Now
absolutely.
can I go
So
to bed?
you can go now. I promised you'd be done by 10. I'm fulfilling my promise.
I at least didn't put my pajamas on. I thought about it, but I thought, no, that's rude.
How much longer are you going to do this crazy thing? What are you doing?
I don't know. Tom said 10 years. I don't know. I know at least we'll be there through the end of 2021. I can guarantee that, but I
Okay,
don't know
that's
about
hey,
the rest of it.
that's great.
Hopefully they sign me after that, but yeah, I don't know. Why would I quit?
No, you
Else
shouldn't
gets
quit.
paid to go in and laugh every day.
No,
I
it's
mean,
great.
I'm so, like I said at the beginning, I'm really blessed and I'm not joking. I really feel that way. And I would never take it for granted. And yeah, no, I will stay as long as they'll have me, I guess. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. And you know what? I owe you a thank you because I'm really blessed by being on that show, and you're such a, essential part of the whole machine there. That is, and this is not an exaggeration. That's given me the opportunity to sell tickets to people who wanted to come see me on purpose, which is the only goal I ever had in stand-up. So I'm gigantically thankful for your being a part of that
We're
thing
like
for me.
family. You've been around a long time
I
too.
know I have been. It's been
You
great.
had long hair. I've known you for quite a while.
I know now. I shaved my head this year. Look at this.
Oh my gosh, you sure did. Wow.
I don't know if I like it short, but it was kind of a fun experiment anyway.
Sure.
I love you, lady. It's great to talk to you. Thank you for
Love you
coming and
too. My
doing this.
best to your family, and we'll talk to you next week.